Unemployed and Afraid acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this episode on and of the land where you, the listener, are tuning in from. We would like to pay our respects to elders past, present, and extend our respect to any First Nations, Aboriginal, and Torres Strait Islander people joining us today, acknowledging that this always was and always will be Aboriginal land.
Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the messy middle of being out on your own and starting over with the people who've done it. I'm your host, Kim Curtin. Thank you for being here. Let's get into today's story of starting over. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Unemployed and Afraid. I am super grateful to have your ears today. I've been thinking a lot lately about where I can become unstuck on my journey of change, my journey of growth. It could be something that you might relate to. I know while we're developing our businesses, and particularly when we are developing ourselves, there can be times where we need a little bit of a gentle push. That push, it could come from a fantastic TED Talk, a book, or an inspiring podcast. But have you ever experienced that funny place in the middle where you feel inspired and know where you want to go, but can't quite seem to effectively integrate the learnings into some kind of lasting action? It's something that I have definitely run into on this journey. This is the space between the knowing and the doing, and my guest today knows all about this. Gibb had an impressive career in some of the world's largest software companies. He was leading teams, managing huge budgets, everything he thought he wanted. But little by little, he stopped feeling good in the everyday. So he walked away from his career and delved into a period of self-exploration and development that has led him to become a coach and a mentor to others on a similar journey. He's developed a wealth of knowledge about what it's like to start over and share so much in this story. This chat might be just that gentle push that you need in your own journey. I know it put a little bit of a fire under me. So without further intro, here is my chat with Stephen. My guest today has a lot of experience in hitting the pause button on a career. Stephen Gibb is an adaptability coach and founder of the coaching and mentoring offering Adaptable Edge. In his own words, Stephen spent 15 years working for the world's largest software companies and changed jobs and employers with unusual regularity, pursuing the extrinsic motivation of money and prestige above all else. And I would say that is a very honest take on what many experience on a corporate career journey. After a period of intense self-reflection, Adaptable Edge was created to show people how to look beyond fear, broaden their perspective, explore possibilities, and achieve their goals with freedom and ease. Stephen is honest and brilliantly vulnerable about the challenges of recognizing what's really happening for yourself and is generous about sharing what he's learned with the world. Stephen, welcome to Unemployed and Afraid.
Thanks, Kim. I love that brilliantly vulnerable. It is a superpower. It really is, and to be brilliantly vulnerable is something special that everyone has to get better at. In my personal opinion, it's the keys to a whole new set of opportunities and potential. So thank you for that introduction. It's beautiful.
You're welcome. I agree. There's a whole area on our CVs, if we're so inclined, to be applying for jobs these days for quote unquote soft skills or things that are interesting to an employer about how an employee might bring themselves to work in a certain way. So I agree with you. I think brilliantly vulnerable is a superpower for sure. Before we get into your career story, let's break the ice a little bit. I would love to know how your very best friend would describe you.
Mark would probably say that I am probably a little bit like a dog with a bone. Like once I get my hands on something, like it's quite hard to get me to stop. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. You know, I end up down some rat holes that are not really offering me a lot of value, but when I find something that is good, that is valuable, that is serving me, is serving others, like I'm all in. So yeah, that would probably be what would come to mind first for Mark, I would think.
I think that's quite relatable. I've got a fairly insatiable curiosity, and when something gets my attention, it's hard to ignore. So I can understand. Tell me, what was your career like before Adaptable Edge was created?
I've been very fortunate. Like I've travelled the world professionally, so obviously Scottish, but left Scotland about 17 years ago. Lived in Hungary for 4 years, spent a bunch of time in Mexico and the States and Singapore, all through roles in technology. And it's a brilliant opportunity to learn about the world, learn about who I was, but also to make some cash as well. And then latterly in my career, I ended up in more senior roles in companies like Oracle and Adobe, where there were huge amounts of pressure. Those are like hyper growth companies and the expectations are astronomical. And ultimately it got to the point where the common colloquial term to be used would be burnt out. But there's a lot beneath the surface of what burnout looks like and what it looked like for me and what the dimensions that contributed to that were. And I'm happy to share all and everything about that if it's of interest, Kim.
Absolutely. Tell me some of the highs in your career life before Adaptable Edge.
The travel is kind of at the pinnacle, getting someone else to pay your airfare, your accommodation and all those things, to live in fabulous places and to learn about people and to kind of learn your craft, as well. It's a gift in my opinion, it's a gift to be put in positions where you are challenged, where you're taken out of your comfort zone and really shown what you're made of, and then also provided with the environment where you can develop and grow, where you can be incubated as an individual and as a professional. So all of the organisations that offered that to me, and I would say all that I've ever worked for have had some element of that. I'd say that is the highlight, like learning for me. And I forgot about, I kind of lost sight of this a little bit in the middle period of my career, but learning has always been such an important facet of being a professional and learning new things and developing as an individual. So the opportunities to do that were highlights. More specifically, I've always worked really in the kind of sales domain, and there's huge adulation and celebration that comes with winning big business and all those types of things. And in the moment, those feel great, but it becomes quite clear quite often that those are short-lived and often not to be as celebrated as much as we often do. I think certainly one of the challenges the challenges that I experienced is working in a sales environment. While it has all of that celebration, there's a lot of dysfunction in there. It generates a lot of fear in individuals, fear of losing a deal, fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of losing your job, all these things, and it creates this roller coaster of massive highs and really deep lows. Yeah, so it's difficult. I did enjoy my career in sales and in tech, but it was always punctuated with deep moments of contemplation where everything wasn't going quite right.
Yeah, I can understand that. When did you start to notice that the not feeling good was becoming more prominent and you started to question where you were in that career journey? Yeah,
so about 3 years ago, I had just become a husband, I'd just become a dad, I'd just taken a new role at Adobe, and they'd kindly given me $250 million budget to look after, which is a number which is inconceivable to plan around. It's so big, and a big team, and not a lot of clear expectation as to what I was expected to do other than deliver this big number. And I woke up one day and everything, not really one day, it was more of a slow, gradual thing, kind of like the metaphor when you put a frog in a pot of water and slowly bring it to the boil. The frog doesn't know what's happening, and all of a sudden it's at this position where it's in boiling water and it meets its demise. Well, that kind of happened to me, but there's a moment I think where you work out, this water's really hot. But until that point, I was finding it difficult to focus, I was finding it difficult to apply my attention anywhere. It always felt like I was kind of looking through this fogged up windscreen into the world. And even the simple things in life became really difficult. So, when you have to log into anything digital now, you put in your password and then it says, oh no, you can't get in yet, I have to send you 6 numbers so you can type them in as well. Well, I couldn't remember the 6 numbers that got to my phone long enough to turn around and type them into my laptop. And when that's the case, something is severely wrong if you can't remember 6 numbers for 3 or 4 seconds. So I kind of smile and give myself a bit of a pat in the back every day now that I'm able to do that without any challenge. But there was a point in my life where that was just inconceivably difficult for me. And I had this always on feeling of stress and anxiety. It was just there, sitting at the back of the head. And that was always there, always worried about what tomorrow was going to bring. For no apparent reason. There were no lions or tigers or bears on the horizon, but there was always this sense of what tomorrow's going to be a difficult day. And then you and I have spoken about this a little bit, Kim. Imposter syndrome was an always on, but not just feeling like an imposter professional, feeling like an imposter as a husband and feeling like an imposter as a dad as well, not really knowing like, what am I meant to be doing here, and am I doing a good job of the stuff that I am doing? So that was a real challenge. But I didn't know what had changed, I didn't know when. I just realised that it was getting worse and worse. So 3 years ago, that was the kind of culmination of, I suppose it's an entire career's worth of build-up, of challenging experiences and all of the adaptations that we make to ourselves to try and handle everything which is thrown at us as the world changes around about us. And we, as you mentioned, you kind of take new careers, you make progress, you pursue dollars and prestige. With that comes the need to change and adapt to new roles. And generally, I don't think, certainly in the kind of big corporate landscape, the support is not given to allow people to make that development. We're given a lot of like, here's some technical skills you can learn, here's how to be a better presenter, here's how to delegate. But we're not really taught the human skills that underpin that. We're not really assisted in managing our mindset to allow us to actually fulfill those roles and apply those technical skills that we're taught. So I suppose that's a long-winded way to say it was a build-up over a long period of time to a point around 3 years ago where it just became too much for me, and I ended up in a doctor's waiting room to have a test for depression. And yeah, that was like the big wake-up call. Very fortunate to have lots of loving people in my life that saw like something's not quite right. I became very withdrawn. My relationship started to suffer quite a lot. But like humans are just amazing, right? Even in the face of someone who's maybe not being loving and kind to them, or someone who's pulling away from a relationship, they still step forward. These beautiful people still step forward and suggest you go and seek help. And that for me was kind of where my, I suppose, last 3 years of life experience and professional change and personal growth and development and began. And yeah, I think we have to go through those things. I think we have to have that big catalyst, which is unfortunate, but that catalyst often is necessary for us to be able to kind of find the kind of next stage in our life, as I like to think of it as.
And tell me about the moment you decided this is happening. I am walking away from my career. I'm handing in that little resignation letter.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's not quite how it worked for me. Adobe came to me and said, "Oh, Stephen, we'd like to offer you a bigger role with more money and more people and a bigger target to hit." And it was while all this was going on. So the serendipity of the world is not lost on me. That often the things that we need in the moments we need them are presented to us, as long as we can look at them from multiple different perspectives. So I was able to see that opportunity as that offer as an opportunity to really reflect on, is this what I want? And I couldn't in good conscience take a larger team and larger responsibility where I was at. And I was starting to question a little bit, is working in a sales environment, in the tech environment, really what my life is going to be about for the next 10 or 20 years? And the answer, quite honestly, was no. And there were a lot of aspects that we can talk about that really didn't sit comfortably with me in a role of that nature. So I took the opportunity to say, do you know what? I'm really grateful for the trust that opportunity shows, but I can't accept it. It just so happens that this new role would consume the role I already had. So in rejecting that role, I was effectively self-selecting myself out of the corporate world. And it was just before COVID. So it was maybe crazy anyway, but doubly crazy as we entered everything that we've all just gone through in the last couple of years. But I mean, and this is true, I think, for a lot of people in tech. Adobe were wonderful in kind of supporting my exit and providing me with both financial and kind of the support emotional, psychological support needed to kind of exit a business elegantly. And yeah, that was it. So then I found myself kind of out on the street with no job and a family to look after.
What did you do first? What were your first few weeks like after that?
The first few weeks were really kind of a bit of a decompression, and a bit of a celebration as well. It felt like quite an empowered step to take, but I was still in the middle of everything I just described previously. I still wasn't feeling great as a human, and I was going through also the separation of a marriage at that point as well. So there was a lot going on in the world. So I suppose one thing that was really favourable about the situation is dropping the professional part of my life gave me a lot more headspace to be as considered and present for what is a huge life change when you break apart a marriage and there's a little one involved. So to be able to be really conscious and really present for that, but also to kind of begin to look after myself a little bit more and be just become more aware of what was going on for me. So being able to develop some headspace was, and I didn't really know at the time, but reflecting, like, one of the most important things that I was able to do.
And when did your plan for what was going to be next start to formulate?
Like 3 weeks ago. I don't like it's a kind of an ever changing thing, and I think this journey is less about planning and more about the kind of navigation of mastery, and we can talk about that more. But when I first kind of started to come out of the fog, as it were, I was never sure, like, I feel like I might have to go back into the corporate world, but I'd quite like to do my own thing. And I gave myself 6 months. I said, do you know what? I'm not going to worry about it for at least 6 months. I'm very fortunate. Another benefit of having worked in the corporate environment and having been successful is I had some money that allowed me not to have to rush in desperation back into something else, which I think is such a gift. Like, I have no regrets about my career in tech, none at all, because I learned so much, and it gave me the skills and the financial foundations to do what I do now. And without that, I wouldn't have been able, I don't think, to have done it, or certainly not to have done it as quickly, or to have done it in such an enjoyable way. And I think the entrepreneurial journey, or the kind of journey to a new career or a new way of living your life, can be enjoyable, but for a lot of people it's a real grind. You know, it's people with a side hustle kind of working all the hours that God will send, or it's people scraping about in the dirt trying to make ends meet with this beautiful idea that the market or the world just hasn't caught up to yet. And like, I was fortunate enough not to have to have that experience, and really I've had a really enjoyable exploration of what really is it that I want to do, because I didn't have a clear vision necessarily. I had a really acute understanding of some problems to be solved, problems that I'd experienced, that I've described, and I was observing in many others around about me, and a real passion to try and solve them, but I didn't really know what that should look like. I don't think I answered your question there, Kim.
No, I think you did. But what's interesting is hearing about, solving problems and finding opportunities to explore that a little bit more deeply. I think many of us will go and look for potentially somebody to learn from, be it listening to a podcast or reading a book or undertaking education. Were there any elements of those that mattered and really made a change for you?
Yeah, so someone gave me a book called Stealing Fire just as I was leaving Adobe. It's written by an amazing couple of guys, Jamie Wheel and Stephen Kotler. And have you heard of the book?
No, I actually, in my research of you, I've heard you mention this book, and I have written it down as my next must read. It sounds fascinating.
I think we can be quite guilty of overstating the importance of a book. And I think, like, there's so many great books out there, but for me what's important is the right book at the right time for the right person.
I agree.
But what I'll also say about books is, and I'll say this more generally about the whole self-improvement, self-development industry, is a lot of material is genericized to the point of scale, so we can kind of get it in the hands of as many people or get as many people to a seminar as possible. And I think we're at risk of being unable to bridge this thing called the knowing-doing gap. Like, we can all have loads of information, but unless we can bring that to bear in our lives, unless we've got someone or some means of driving our accountability to this piece of information we've learned, the book is largely just a piece of entertainment, and you might as well watch Netflix. So books alone are, for me, not the answer, but if they can provide a catalyst to you finding a way in which to bring and bridge it into knowing, into doing, I think that's critical. Mm-hmm. But for me, this book was revelatory, because it just showed me that I'd always had a sense of this, but it showed me that there actually was a huge amount of human potential above where I was at. And I was always operating, I think, at a pretty high level. I've always looked after myself physically, and I've always kind of thought, well, I eat well, and I'm drinking lots of water, and all the things, I tried to get good sleep. But even at that, like, I had a sense that there was a whole other level of possibility, and this book really put it into words and crystallized it for me. And I became a little bit addicted to, like more of the things. So meditation and breath work and a whole range of other modalities became really interesting to me. And on the final page, just before you get to the cover of that book, there's an invitation to go on the website and go to one of Jamie and Stephen's seminars. So collectively, they had built a business called the Flow Genome Project, which effectively teaches people how to become coaches of optimal performers. So focused upon the tiny percent of people who are already performing at a high level and want to like bleed out the last few percent. So typically they're working with top level CEOs, extreme athletes, extreme sports professionals, like just amazing people in the world that I have always looked up to as like, well, how do they do such amazing things and always look so composed and just have an amazingly apparently rich and fulfilled life. So they were working with these guys. So it's funny like when you follow the breadcrumbs. I'll read this book and then I'll go to this website and all of a sudden I filled in a form and I'm doing an interview and then all of a sudden I've parted with a huge wedge of cash and then I'm on a plane to the States to study with this amazing group of people. So I ended up in the Redwoods in California at this beautiful purpose-built retreat, learning about, well, what is this thing called flow and how do you help people achieve this? It's an altered state of consciousness, effectively, and it's based in psychology. So it was discovered by someone called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, who was a Hungarian psychologist. Noticed the link between me living in Hungary and...
I did. So, and your excellent pronunciation of his name.
Yeah, I've got a little bit of Hungarian. But I mean, this is another truth in my life. If we look at our life closely, we will see threads that cut through, and if we can be really adept, we can begin to see the dots of those threads into the future. And this might be a little bit spiritual, a little bit esoteric for people, but I do believe that there are ways for us to find guidance in the future by looking at the narratives of our past and finding where things join together elegantly. For me, Hungary has been a big theme throughout that. So Mihai Csikszentmihalyi and his whole philosophy around flow resonated deeply with me. So I undertook that study with Jamie and Stephen, and yeah, it was really what I needed to bring myself back to life, as it were, but also to start to develop some clarity about how might I begin to solve some of the problems that I experienced and that I observed in the corporate world.
The threads of awareness that come through our life, or just the little prods from the universe that pop up in the funniest of ways. And if you tried to write it on a spreadsheet and make a plan for how that thread was going to be pulled and what was going to be revealed through the stages of your life, it would be wonderful. But we don't often have that opportunity to see forward or to have clarity until we can look back and see those times.
For sure. And for me, that comes down to self-awareness. Kim, one of the things that I've discovered in the work that I do is that very few people actually know who they are or can describe who they are. We're just living in this very socialized, very structured world where we have made choices in order to do the thing that we can do repetitiously without too much risk of it being usurped by some external circumstance, so we can make money, feel comfortable. And when we're in that kind of myopic, narrow view of the world, we miss things which are happening around about us. In fact, we miss things that happen right in front of our eyes, to be really honest. And I would say that one of the things that, other than kind of building Adaptable Edge and really enjoying that, one of the things that I've developed for myself is a real awareness of who I am and what I'm all about as a person. And if I take that and reflect it back into the past, like what had happened over time is I'd forgotten that it's okay for me as a man to have needs and to have wants and to express what those are and to look for them to be fulfilled. And I found myself in this position where I was kind of like very focused on the needs of other people, and I've always been quite sensitive to situations around about me. So I'll give you a work example. Whenever I was in a meeting at work and I could see like an uncomfortable situation emerging, or someone would have to do something, and I was like, oh, like I can imagine what you're going to say, and I would try and like massage situations the whole time, so I was taking on the responsibility for managing a room of 10 people versus just managing my state and my contribution to that conversation. So I found myself doing this in all areas of my life, and I'm still susceptible to it, and can pinpoint like the point in my childhood where that began. And through the vehicle of leaving Adobe, discovering the Flow Genome Project, build my own business, I've been able to kind of unpack, well, what was that, and why is this unconscious belief about who I have to be driving so much of my life, and what have the consequences been of that, and how has that caused me not to show up as well as I possibly could for myself, for loved ones, and professionally as well. And for me, like, one of the greatest things anyone can do for themselves is try and build a greater level of self-awareness, not of the conscious things about what our job title is, and like, are we a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, but what are the things that we believe about ourselves, or the things that we believe about how the world works, that drive our decisions and drive our behaviour. Because it's in making those things object, those things that we are subject to unconsciously object, that we really understand what's going on. Why are we stuck where we're stuck? And why are we not sure where to go? Or why are we resisting, or why are we sabotaging the next step? And it's often because of parts of ourselves that are very powerful that we can't see, that we don't understand. But once we do, again, it's another superpower. Self-awareness is an incredible gift that we can give to ourselves.
I completely agree. The self-work that comes from just getting started and finding a book that could lead to a concept, that could lead to a theory that resonates. Finding a great therapist is one of the greatest gifts that we can give to ourselves. And finding something that holds our curiosity. I have a deep fascination in the way that our mind holds us back chemically, physiologically. Yeah. And the fear that it innately drives to keep us locked into what we know. If we know what is going to happen from a circumstance, we feel safe enough to go ahead and do it. And there's a lot of fabulous quotes out there, life begins on the edge of fear, or, you're out of your comfort zone, and they're wonderful. But when you practically start to think about how our mind evolutionarily, that's going to be a tough word to say, from an evolution perspective, holds us back, holds us back and keeps us the same in something that it knows. Yeah. It's quite empowering to then realize, hang on, I don't have to do that. I don't have to be like that. If I can find aspects of myself to gain those moments of pause before action through meditation. That was a big part of my life and my change over the last 2 years, and learning that I can take a moment before making a decision to really think about, hang on, what's driving what I'm about to say or do here, beyond what I can see right in front of me, or can barely see right in front of me. And being able to move forward is a huge gift, and it's very exciting to hear in retrospect the journey that you've taken of self-education. And it's wonderful now to be able to see where that has led you, but I can imagine that was a very intense journey in and of itself, whilst considering what am I going to do next for a career, and doing that self-work. It would have been intense.
Yeah, it was intense, but it was intense. And one of the things that I resolved quite early was the journey I was going on was not a journey to build a business. The journey I was going on was a journey to build myself. And when I think about what is success of Adaptable Edge, yes, it would be nice for it to make some money, and yes, I really want to help some people, but it was all about me being able to learn. It was all about me being able to develop and grow. And when you have that as the reason you're doing this thing, like every day you sit down to do some selling, or to deliver a service to a client, or to do some marketing, or to do some research, you work out that all of those tasks are classrooms within which you can learn, classrooms that will expose to you areas where you are not free, areas where you have resistance in your life. And kind of I reflect this, there's an amazing, what you probably call coach in the States called Peter Crone, and he uses this beautiful catchphrase, I suppose you would call it, where he talks about the world will give us circumstances and people to show us where we're not free. And for me, I was using the vehicle of building a business and building my life as this thing to show me what are the parts of myself, what are the parts of my psychology that are holding me back or are causing me distress, anxiety, overwhelm, exhaustion. And when we can look at the pursuit of something new and what we achieve in that pursuit, not as the goal, but the pursuit itself as being the thing of value, something magical happens. So the name for that is called autotelic. So autotelic is a word which means seeing value in the experience, not in the outcome of the experience. And when we can get value from the act, it's in some way kind of alleviates the pressure of the outcome and allows you to be much more free and much more wholly and naturally expressed in the way in which you pursue something. And I want to kind of like parlay that into something else you talked about there, and like having support. One of the things that I've done, which I think has been most important for me, is build up basically like a pit crew of people that I can rely upon. So an energy healer and a mindset coach and an organizational coach and who else have I got? Like a personal trainer and just having people, someone that helps me with EMDR. So a range of different therapies that in the beginning you don't know like what all these things are, how to use them, but over time you become quite adept at knowing like who's necessary in a particular point. So the world presents you with a circumstance or a person that brings something up for you and you go, like I can deal with some of this on my own, but I know that I should go and speak to whomever because they'll help me navigate that a little bit better. They help me get better clarity on what this means for me. And I think this is important to kind of tie up a few bows here. They will hold me accountable to not just having the knowledge, but to applying the knowledge and integrating it into my life. And I think in the absence of these people that can become intimate with your life and your journey and what you're trying to achieve, I think it's very difficult. This human life is not meant to be an individual pursuit. I mean, that is clear now. Two of our key instincts are to find belonging in community and tribe, and the other one is to be independent and chart our own path. But I think we have to kind of override that with it's not meant to be like an individual pursuit. We need to rely on people when we need them, and we need to kind of do our own stuff to find the areas where we need to engage those individuals. And there's a path to mastery around that as well. As I said, you need to develop that skill, you need to develop that muscle, first of seeing where you need help, but then being vulnerable enough to ask for help. And I think this is one of the challenges that I had to overcome. I thought I was completely self-sufficient and didn't need anyone's help. In fact, it was my job to help everyone else. But once you can kind of, or once I'll speak from my own perspective, once I got over that and realised that you can move far faster and with far less friction when you use the support of other people, it's just a beautiful place. And people often say, oh, well, it's too expensive, or like I can't get access to the right resources. That's excuse making as far as I'm concerned, and it's a belief that we impose upon ourselves. Because what I have found, that investment in these things returns itself many-fold over, both in terms of finance and the speed with which we can move towards the next stage of life that we're looking for.
Mm-hmm. It's so very true. I often liken it to, a beautiful lunch or dinner out with friends or with a partner, and the expense that we will place on that wonderful but very short-term experience of satisfaction, if we can regenerate that into something that helps us as a human, helps us to grow and to move forward in life in the way in which we truly want to get closer to having perhaps more opportunities to have wonderful lunches and dinners with friends and family, because we have a sense of freedom, both emotionally and financially. It's kind of a no-brainer when you look at it in that respect. Very, very inspirational. You're reminding me about energy healers. I need to get myself a good one. And, I love a bit of holistic health. And you're inspiring me, and I'm sure many others, to get out there and look after themselves as they deserve to be looked after. I can see very clearly your threads of bringing you to create Adaptable Edge, and can hear in your story how much you have to offer individuals on their own path. So I'm very interested to know how it felt to you as a human when you put your new venture of Adaptable Edge out into the world.
How it felt? I think it's like equal parts daunting and exciting are probably the best way to describe it. But I'm using but a lot, I shouldn't. And so Adaptable Edge wasn't the first business I launched. So I launched a business called Autotelic about a year earlier, which tried to bring a lot of that like optimal performance coaching to the market. And the market people are not there. For the most part, people are not wanting to perform optimally. People are wanting to be helped out of the state of languishing that we've all kind of found ourselves in, partly by virtue of COVID and partly just by circumstances in everyone's life. So I kind of had a go at it, and it was almost like a toy. Autotelic was almost like a toy to play with, and then Adaptable Edge was like, okay, let me take all of that learning and kind of put it in here. So I had a level of confidence that what I was going to do was going to work. And again, I worked with an amazing creative coach, Wade. You and I both know Wade.
Oh, yes.
who really helped me kind of through that journey and built my confidence that, this is what you have is important and valuable, and he helped me work out, well, how do I explain what that is to the world? And I mean, it's not even in like, so I launched Adaptable Edge late November, and by launched I mean like it was in the world for the public to look at, but I'd been kind of delivering service under that banner for a while, and I suppose it was quite rewarding to see it in the world. And then what's more rewarding is to, in the last, I suppose, January and February, to see how rapidly the adoption has been. And what's become really clear to me, Kim, is that I'm very fortunate to be in a position where I have developed and tuned the words that people can use to describe what they've been feeling for a long time and not being able to overcome. And there's something very gratifying when you put words to something which has been making someone uncomfortable and you see their response to it. And without doing any work, just by sharing, this is why you're experiencing what you're experiencing, the load lightens, because when you know why something is the case, there is a way to move beyond it. And that's, I think, the most rewarding part of my work at the moment is kind of like just giving people the opportunity to like breathe out and their shoulders lift. And it's just, it's not quite an aha moment, but there's definitely something happens in there, almost some level of catharsis for people to kind of say, I'm not alone, I'm entirely human, I'm not broken, and there's something which is entirely normal which is happening to me. And actually, the reason I feel how I feel is just because my brain and my body are trying to keep me safe. We're driven, our brain is like honed to manage our survival. And all that's been happening for a lot of people in the last few years is we've been doing our best to survive. And there are consequences of the way in which we approach survival, because it's very ancient. All of our kind of programming and the way in which we move through the world is very ancient and kind of evolved from when we were hunters and gatherers. And some of the ways in which our brain works are not necessarily attuned to the modern world, but that's still how they work. So it puts us into these funny states if we're not conscious of them and able to be aware of what's happening and have the skills and the tools and the frameworks to move beyond them. So rewarding, I suppose, is where I'm at now in the evolution of launching a business and getting to today.
And it's wonderful to hear what might be a very small part on the journey or the fun time of launching the first business and testing the market. It's really wonderful to hear how you did that with, I imagine, a lot of gumption, a lot of passion into that business, but then allowed that to evolve into what has now become a new focus and a new business in Adaptable Edge, not holding on too tightly to whatever concept you had at a moment and allowing it to lead you to the next thing. I think there's a lot of learnings in there for a lot of people. We all look for that firm end goal, but it's fluid. It just changes.
It is. Interestingly, so I have my own coach, a guy called Rob. He's an organisational coach, so he's my kind of like go-to. Every 2 weeks I chat to him. And we kind of set up this year's worth of work in early January, and the theme for my whole year is surrender. And it's about having preference, but allowing circumstance to guide what happens. Now that sounds easy on the surface, but circumstance is normally the enemy of most people, because when things change around about us, it triggers fear and anxiety and stress and all the things. And if you've not got really balanced management of self and how you respond to external circumstance, being surrendered is very difficult. But when you can be surrendered, what happens is potential and opportunity becomes abundant around you, because you're not like blinkered into, I need this thing to happen in this way. And the reality is, like, because we are so attuned to survival, we're continually looking for threat and danger in the horizon. And when we're looking for threat and danger, invariably what we try to do is control the external circumstances around us, which, number one, sorry to reveal it to everyone, you can't control the external circumstances. There is so much happening in the universe all around us that the few little things that you can see in your immediate vicinity are influenced by so many more things around them that you cannot control them. But we expend such an enormous amount of energy trying to control for every possible scenario. And imagine we can take all that energy and focus it upon, okay, I have a preference and I'm just going to do the stuff that I want to do, that excites me, that engages me, that's going to move me roughly in the right direction, and I'm going to move with the world as it changes. That has been like a huge shift in my ability to kind of move quick and to respond positively to opportunity. But yeah, having a theme of surrender for the year has been, even in the like month and a half that I've been working on it, like just huge benefit. And it sounds like it's very difficult. It's such a leap of faith just to surrender to the world, and it almost feels luxurious to say, oh well, I'm just going to let the world decide for me. And it feels a little bit like I used to be the most analytical, left-brained person you could have ever possibly met. So to kind of be in this position where I'm freeing my life up to be controlled by something other than myself, I would never have expected myself to be there, but it's so liberating and so, I mean, it's return, like, to measure it more empirically, it's returning so much success in my business and so much success and happiness for me. Like at the moment as an experiment, and it's a total experiment. I would love to know if surrender's the answer, and I'm going to take a year of surrender and be able to know, at least in some way, whether it's been good or not. But it's powerful.
It's really great, and sometimes the only measure that we have is how we feel in our everyday, and that's sometimes enough. It doesn't necessarily need to translate to firm sales or a firm goal or something highly strategized. So I think it's a great approach.
Yeah, but I mean, that also comes back to self-awareness. Like, most people don't know how they feel on a daily basis other than, I don't feel good. And I don't feel good is not enough information. The body and the mind provides us with so much more insight about what's going on for us that we suppress. We have been taught that resilience is the premium skill that we need to have. And resilience is necessary. It's very important, but it's no longer adequate. The ability to adapt is quickly becoming one of the most important skills we can have. Like, the world is changing at an exponential rate around us, and we change as humans at a very linear rate. And there's this thing called the adaptation gap that sits in the middle, which inhibits our ability to integrate and operate in the world as it changes. So what happens is we just get beat down by change all around us, and everyone says, oh, just be resilient, put on a brave face, like, keep going. Like, it's not going to get you to the place you want to be, it's going to get you to the place where I was. And what we need to develop is that muscle of adaptability, which allows us to see possibility and potential in the world and move towards it. And the thing which inhibits our adaptability is all of that limiting assumption and belief underpinned by fear that we observed as children and our caregivers, and we observed in society, which kind of keeps us stuck, keeps us mired and languishing in the state that I was in, and I know many, many others are as well. But I suppose adaptability is innate. Adaptability is innate. Like, as children, we're all like fearless, running about, loving life, super excited, getting into everything. That's the essence of adaptability that we callous over as we move through life. And the key is to remove the calluses. What is this baggage I'm bringing with me, which is telling me I can't be this thing, that the world won't allow me to do what I want to do? That's all irrational belief. It's not founded in truth. It's founded in experience, often decades in the past. And we can start to uncover that, and we can start to believe that we can overcome it and provide evidence to ourselves that it's not true, and in doing so, allow ourselves to kind of unlock more of our adaptability over time. And if I was to explain to people, like, the one thing which I have developed in this journey, it's just to be much more adaptable and not be controlled by beliefs and assumptions that were not serving me at all.
Stephen, your journey of self-awareness, your journey of understanding self and into this business of Adaptable Edge is a gift. So thank you for sharing that journey today and parts of your business and your offerings as well. I think the listener will very, very clearly hear how wonderful this service is that you're offering to the world. Which brings me to my final question. How can the listener and I support you on your journey right now?
It's so beautiful when the question is, how can I support you? I think that's a lovely question to ask. And the only support I need is, I don't know the answer to that question. I don't. I'll accept it as a gift, and I might come back to you with some support I need in the future. But at the moment, there's not really anything I can ask for in terms of support. But what I will offer is, if what I talk about is interesting to people, like, my website is adaptableedge.com. Feel free to go and have a look at that. And if people would like to speak to me one-on-one, I'm really happy to do so and to help in whatever way I can. But I'm just grateful to be able to share my experience and hopefully some of my passion that shows that you can go from a pretty dark place to a place which is a million miles away from that, where happiness and health and success are present more often than not in life, and I don't think you can really know that until you experience it. Again, you can hear people talk about it, you can read all the books, but I wouldn't have believed it to have been true until I experienced it. But it really is possible, and it's really beautiful to see people move in that direction. So I think all the work you're doing, Kim, is so necessary in the world, and such a gift to kind of get people started. And introducing people to new ideas, new concepts, and to the point we discussed before we started, like hearing the stories of others as the raw material for passion or or raw material for motivation to kind of take that first step, I think is again a beautiful thing to do. So thank you from me for on behalf of the world for doing that.
Oh, thank you. I so appreciate that. And I will make sure that the listener can access your website through the show notes. I'll have that all listed there so they can get in touch with you. If you're anything like me, listener, you're probably going to listen to this a couple of times. I encourage it. It's wonderful motivation to share. So thank you for sharing so much. I'll also make sure that we have the links to a few of the resources that you've mentioned in our chat today as well. I've noted them down, so I'm going to be going to read that book, and you reminded me to get in touch with Wade as well. So thank you for sharing those so generously. It's been an absolute pleasure to chat with you today. So thank you so much for making the time.
Thanks, Kim.
I hope you're feeling the inspo after this chat. I suspect this won't be the last time we get to hear from Stephen. In fact, there's a little community of humans building over on Facebook, where we're planning to create opportunities to keep the conversation and support going. So if you haven't already, search for Unemployed and Afraid on Facebook and request to join. And over the coming weeks and months, you'll be able to weigh in on how we can help you to keep growing in your world. As always, I love to hear from you. So please drop me a DM at Unemployed and Afraid on Insta anytime with your thoughts and your feedback. And if you're enjoying the episodes, please consider taking a few moments to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify, and share the episode with anyone else you think would love to hear it. Your support means the absolute world. Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the stories of starting over with your host, me, Kim Curtin. If you liked the episode and are keen to hear more, please hit the follow button and leave a review. And let's keep the conversation going on Instagram at Unemployed and Afraid, where there's more goodies and links to today's show notes. See you there.